Oh man, it's early and I'm awake, wide awake. All six cylinders are going full force up here. Maybe even expanded to 8 cylinders. There's two I didn't know I had. This is only my first cup of, decaf coffee that I just spilled. I am just feeling extremely nostalgic today. I think there's a driving force. I feel like a kid on Christmas morning before you're allowed to go in and wake up your parents. So here's what's going on. Tonight, I'll be taking my family back to the town where my family had family reunions, where I attended college, where I met my wife, where I flunked my first anatomy test, and beyond. Now, I'm not going to dig into every one of those details today. I want to talk specifically about family reunions and how maybe it's kind of a dying art form. It makes me really sad. I'm hoping it actually sort of lights a fire. Yeah, there we go. Let's set the mood right. Got some leather bootstrap smell. So I don't think family reunions are a super unique thing. I think all cultures, families have the potential to come together. Part of what I've been thinking about this morning is that we're so overconnected this way that we're failing to connect this way. Certainly there's value in being connected this way. But when I roll back time in my head, which is the ultimate time machine that we have, there's just so many cherished things from that time. Now, granted, I'm remembering through childhood eyes, right? I was 7, 8, 9, 10 years old. Peak childhood years, right? For some, maybe for others not. For me, definitely peak childhood years. And so here's the scene. Hotels and motels. We didn't do a lot of that when I was a small kid. Didn't really have a need for it. We lived in a big metropolitan area, had access to everything. Family was within driving distance and so on. But one thing that the family reunion did is it picked a more neutral place that was kind of between all family. And in this case, it was 2 or 3 hours away from where we lived. And it was just far enough to where you were going to make a full weekend of the outing. So you would stay at the motel or hotel of your choice. Typically, the hotel hosted the event, at least during my childhood years. So there's this one particular place that peak period was a Holiday Inn in a mid-sized Texas town. So we pull in to the Holiday Inn. The Holiday Inn in the 1990s was probably about as close to the crown jewel of this particular town as any hotel. And it had a lot of really nice amenities. Looking back on it now, maybe it's a little dated, more like a motel, but all the on-site amenities for the period, very, very nice. And well kept and maintained when it was in the Holiday Inn's hands. So that made it special. You check in at this front desk. All the floor, it's like this orangey red tile. Echoes a lot. To your right, there's this restaurant space where I believe they actually would, like you could order off a menu, which was customary for Holiday Inn at the time. You could keep on walking down the hallway, and that opened up into this big room with kind of these open atrium style windows. They were arced all the way up and down. That looked into a beautiful courtyard area that had a swimming pool right in the middle, like the central meeting place of the hotel, while the hotel building all wrapped around. Now, this was more of a motel or inn style where all the rooms were on the outside, they weren't closed off. You could look over the rails down into the area where the swimming pool was. Anyway, you're in the hallway, so you see out to the pool, you look over to your left, and there are some vending machines, and A couple of those machines that rip you off with bouncy balls or stickers. You could put your quarter in, that kind of thing. Prices were better back then. It was definitely cheaper. You keep walking down the hall, and then there's this other little small meeting room. You pull on this gold-handled door, it clicks, and it squeaks open, and then you look in, and there's this room that maybe has seating for 25 or 30, and a few tables, the Formica tabletops, and a bunch of red Solo cups and sweet tea, and noisy people, and you realize, hey, I'm in the wrong room. This isn't my family. But it turns out it actually was kind of like some extended family down the line. They just kind of had their own spin-off family reunion happening at the same time, because Texas, I mean, what else would you expect, right? We're all somebody's third cousin. Anyhow, keep on walking down the hall, and then you find the large meeting room. And I mean, at least in my head, this place is huge. It sprawls out, seating for probably 150, 200 people, which to a little kid was a large group of people. So there's all these wood tables lined up one after another in rows and rows, and there's the hustle and bustle of all these family members and their relatives and their kids talking and arguing, and old ladies doing crossword puzzles, the introverts in the corners reading books, conversations, people connecting with one another. Sure, you probably talked about the elections. Sure, you probably talked about whether you liked your coffee black or with cream. But man, it was nice. I didn't even get to the best part yet. So you turn and you look over here to the south of the room, and there's this huge, I'm talking Texas-sized spread of all the best granny, aunt, and uncle food you could imagine. I mean, I am proud of this. And then usually down at the end, maybe a couple of Kentucky Fried Chicken buckets for the kids that were picky and wouldn't eat anything else. You had potato salads out the wazoo, baked beans, barbecue beans, fried chicken, barbecue. Probably some hamburgers, maybe a couple of cheese pizzas. It was all just piled up. And it was all made with the sort of sentimental love. You had green beans, you had mashed potatoes, you had French fries, fried okra. Can't forget that one. Man, oh man. This is before everybody was tracking things so tightly and closely. This is before everybody was so aware and so sensitive to so many things. And I just think back to it and go, wow, it really was a simpler time. But in some ways, it kind of feels better. And maybe it's because I'm 30 years removed from it now. I have a tendency to idealize things. You keep working your way around the table, and then down on that far end, that table was filled with pies. Oh man, every kind of pie you could imagine. Apple, coconut, peach, maybe even lemon for the weirdos in the family, because somebody had to eat the lemon pie. Pecan pie, had to have some of those. Probably not a lot of sugar-free stuff. Probably not a lot of keto-friendly stuff. It was the good artery-clogging, good kind of food. And if you were on a diet, you broke your diet for that time, because you didn't need everybody else talking about the fact that you were on a diet. Then they had all the drinks. There were the punches, the Hawaiian punch, the sweet tea. Oh man, they poured extra sugar in that stuff. And these giant football team vats full of sweet tea and lemonade. Probably not hardly a water bottle in sight. That's another discussion for another day. I just don't think we drank as much water back then. We should have, but we didn't. So you made your plate, you found your way to a table, you probably sat near some family you knew or some family you saw once a year. For a lot of us kids, it was seen like second or third cousins, and you'd kind of pal off and go in the corner somewhere and talk and visit, play with your food, probably not get caught because there were so many people in the room. And when I think back on this, there's not like a anxiety of, oh my goodness, this is too much commotion, I'm overwhelmed, or anything like that. It's just like this really sweet, unfiltered memory. So the big thing on every kid's mind, certainly from the kid's perspective, was after you ate your plate full of all this good food that you probably didn't take time to appreciate enough of, the great aunts and uncles and the people with the walkers and the glasses where you couldn't really see their eyes anymore, you didn't take enough time to stop and say hi, but they understood you were a kid and they still waved at you. And if they could pull you to the side, they'd give you angel kisses on the cheek and pull you in. Just do that, because that's how our family operated. But what was boiling inside was this excitement to go swimming in that pool. Oh man. But you had to clean your plate first, and it's a Texas thing. You clean your plate before you go. And that means you scrape off all the stuff off the bottom. You got to get it totally clean. And you probably sneak a cookie and maybe a cup of Hawaiian punch outside. So you pop out of the meeting room, after you've made your sales pitch to your parents on the reasons why it's time for you to go swimming. And I mean, obviously they knew it was coming. We did the same thing every year, a number of years. Right. So there's this unexplored sort of freedom at a certain age that I started to have with some little cousins and friends. I don't think it was really in use, but a bar/lounge area on down at the end of the hotel. It was the 90s. People just didn't care, I don't guess. So me and a couple of the cousins, we clicked that gold door handle and popped it open, and we were in that bar room. It had the cups all dangling from the bar area. Actually, the light was on with the backsplash. I don't remember actually seeing any bottles or anything. It just kind of had the look of, this is what a bar should look like. And then there were a couple of arcade games in there, which I always thought was interesting, because it's like, this is for grown-ups, not kids. But we didn't usually get to stay in there because we were always afraid we were going to get caught, if not by one of our parents or grandparents or a relative, by the hotel people, and we knew kids weren't allowed in there. So we'd sneak back out of that dark bar room area and then go out into the courtyard. You'd back out, hang a left. And then you would be hit with the smell of cigarette smoke. We smoked the real kind of cigarettes back then. Not me, but the aunts and uncles. It was mostly everybody would sit outside by the pool, so there was plenty of adult supervision so long as there were some Marlboros and Dr. Peppers nearby. We were all good. So they had all these rows of chairs, and there was a certain time of day when the sun would get to a certain point, people wanted to go outside more. And I just remember all these cousins coming all together, maybe a couple of uncles here or there, like picking us up and throwing us across the water. So many games, so much noise. I'm sure it was like echoing off the hotel walls, and every other guest was agitated with how much fun we were having. But when I think back to it, it's just like, wow. That really is like the model example of community. We squashed our adversities. Sure, there were families with issues and with problems, ideological differences, different stances, different feelings. But what you did at that time, you prioritized family. You took time to say, oh no, that weekend's not clear. We're going to mark out these days for the family reunion, and we're going to go. If we're having trouble affording it, we're going to figure out a way to fund this and get out there. And man, like I said, not hardly a screen in sight. People talking, people connecting, not being so doggone influenced by these things. I don't blame everything on technology, but it certainly has intensified or amplified some of the distance. And I wonder if in some cases maybe we've lost some of this human connection because of all this digital noise in our life. One other little memory I could think of, you went around the corner down past some of the rooms, and there was this hot tub room that was all by itself. It had a sliding glass window, which, thinking back, like, that's kind of dangerous. Like, you parking lot right behind it, you could slide the glass window, pull somebody out of there and go. So you had that room. The sign definitely said no kids allowed without adults, but somehow all of us kids kind of drifted in there and typically didn't get caught. Then there was a little room to the side that was a sauna. I didn't know what it was. I could barely pronounce it, but you'd go in there and get nice and sweaty. I had no idea what was going on. But nonetheless, I was a 6 or 7, 8-year-old kid, and I'd been to the sauna, the hot tub, the pool. I'd been fed right and proper. I'd gotten to have a blast with a bunch of friends in a swimming pool, which was also a big treat at the time. And you'd be so doggone tired, your head would hit the pillow that night. You were totally asleep. Probably shouldn't eliminate the fact that the hotel had cable TV, so that was a real treat at the time as well. And then you woke up and you did it again, and there was a lot of the food got pulled out of the fridges from the previous day, and you started over. You visited, the room got louder and louder, went to bed, and Sunday morning hit. And I don't know, maybe 10 or 15% of the family showed up, but a minister within the family would try to do a little church service inside the meeting room. You probably wouldn't be biting on a piece of fried chicken at the same time, but you were eyeing it like, as soon as this little church service is over, before they kick us out, we're gonna get that. So then time comes where it's time to part ways and to leave. And it seems like, as I recall, there's this mandatory time where every family had to get their picture taken, some with like the larger group together, and then some with kind of your smaller sub-families, and still have a lot of those photos. I think something that I would like to see, something that I'm hoping for in my future and for my kids, is for a sort of resurgence of this type of activity, for us to unplug a little bit more. I'm not saying that the technology's got to go away. Just saying maybe we tone it down a little. We work on the human connection part. That's what we're called to do, to be in community and to connect with people. And I think that we did it better in those simpler times. Anyway, this has been a fun little walk down memory lane. There's probably lots of details that I'm overlooking or missing and over-idealizing, but at the end of the day, this is memory up in this real estate up here. And I hope maybe it jogs some of your memories. Maybe I'm not the only one that had special family reunions as a kid. Here's to hoping that we can bring some of that back.